This was the first year I'd be spending Christmas alone. I think it sounds sadder than it was, but I couldn't afford the flight back to my hometown and couldn't take off any extra vacation time to make it worth it anyway. I always enjoyed seeing others' decorations and driving or walking around on Christmas Day. When I woke up, I turned on the old cartoon Grinch movie and made a nice breakfast and some coffee. Then I spent the next hour on FaceTime with my parents and siblings. After all, that it was probably around noon, I didn't have much else to do. But at some point, I went out to get the mail. And when I opened the door, there were footprints in the snow on my porch. What's odd is that they were frozen over, like not freshly made in the powdery top layer of snow. They looked like they'd been there for hours, maybe even since overnight, when it had been way below freezing. I looked around, even though whoever made them was clearly long gone, then went out and grabbed my mail. It was strange in a way that quietly crawled into my stomach. I wouldn't say I was scared, but I was definitely uneasy. I didn't know what I was supposed to do about it, so I tried to go on with my day. After all, it was Christmas. I let some Hallmark movies play while I opened the gifts and letters my family had mailed to me around 3. I started getting bored and checked the weather. It was supposed to get a lot colder later, so I decided to go for a walk around the neighborhood. While I still could, I bundled up and stepped onto the sidewalk, looking at all the Christmas lights and enjoying the calm. A little way into my walk, I noticed someone else out. He was the only other person around, and he was walking on the other side of the road. I didn't think much of it until a few minutes later when he passed me again. I did a double take because there was no way he could have circled around so quickly unless he turned around right after we first passed each other. It didn't make sense. I kept walking until I reached a split where I could either head home or keep looping around the neighborhood. I ended up going home. It wasn't because of the guy I saw, even though it was weird. Something else in the air just felt wrong and made me want to get back inside. I went in through the front door, and almost immediately after I stepped inside, there was a knock at the door. I had barely taken off my boots and was still standing right by the entrance. My heart started pounding like my body already knew this was bad. I looked through the peephole and saw a man standing very close to the door, wearing a baseball cap pulled low to hide his face. Something about him seemed familiar, though I couldn't place it yet. I thought maybe it was just the guy I'd seen walking around. He knocked again, and I knew he had to have seen me go inside. "What do you need?" I called out. He didn't answer. A few seconds later, he banged on the door harder. I asked again what he wanted and watched through the peephole as he just stood there pressed up against the door, silent, not reacting at all, before slamming his fist against it again. Then he grabbed the handle and threw his whole weight into it. The door shook, violently rattling on its hinges with each hit. I backed away, shaking as the blows kept coming. It went on for maybe 20 or 30 seconds. Then suddenly it all stopped. There was a pause, and then shouting outside. When I went to look, there were 2 cops out front, arresting the man at my door. I stood there frozen, not understanding how any of this was happening. It felt like some kind of miracle that they arrived at the exact perfect moment, but it turned out a neighbor had called the police earlier, saying a man had been wandering back and forth on our street for hours and standing outside my home. Even worse, I realized I knew him. He was an ex from about 6 years ago, someone I hadn't spoken to since the breakup. He didn't even live in the same state as me anymore, and yet he had just shown up at my house on Christmas Day trying to get inside. The cops found 2 knives on him, and in his car parked a few blocks away, he had a firearm and a full roll of duct tape, both of which he had bought only a few days earlier. He wouldn't admit to anything, but it's not hard to understand what he was likely planning to do. Story 2. I'd already spent the whole morning and most of the afternoon with family, so now it was just time to go home and wind down for the rest of the night. Maybe watch a holiday movie or something. I drove 45 minutes from my parents' home to mine. The roads were empty, as you could imagine, and if not for it being Christmas, it would have actually been kind of eerie. Everything was so quiet and motionless outside anyway. I got home around 800, pulling in the garage and heading inside. I flicked on the entrance light and immediately saw some papers spread across the floor in the hallway. It was all from a stack of mail I had sitting on the counter that I guess had fallen over. I didn't think too hard about it. I just picked everything up and tossed it back on the counter. I had left the house in a rush that morning, so maybe I bumped into it, and the pile fell without me noticing. After cleaning it up, I walked around and turned on the rest of the lights, then went into the living room. I had a Christmas tree set up in the corner. It was one of those small fake ones that looked pretty sad, but it was better than nothing. I sat on the couch and found a movie to watch, some new Netflix Christmas movie. It was actually pretty good. I watched the whole thing, but during the entire movie I kept hearing something in my house. It was like quiet, almost impossible to hear creaks. I couldn't tell if it was real or just my tired mind, because every time I thought I heard something I'd pause the movie and listen, but then nothing. I took it as a sign that this Christmas day was over, and I needed to sleep off the exhaustion of being around so many relatives. I turned off the TV and all the lights downstairs and went up to my bedroom, walking in and turning on the overhead lamp, and right away I felt something was wrong. I couldn't say what at first, but I knew my room wasn't how I left it. Something was out of place, and suddenly all the small things from earlier made sense. My body went numb, fear and adrenaline rushing through me. I stepped back into the hallway and looked down the staircase, trying to hear if whoever had been here was still inside. I went down quietly, step by step, until I reached the bottom. There was no sound or movement at all. Is anyone here? I've called the cops. Hello. As I said it, I realized how stupid I was, because I hadn't actually called the police. Yet I turned to go back upstairs, planning to lock myself in my room and call, when sudden footsteps burst out from the living room. It was too dark to see anything clearly, just the tree branches shaking and a shadow rushing away from it. I followed the sound through the kitchen and toward the back door. They yanked it open and ran into the night. I just stood there frozen. Once I snapped out of it, I dialed 911 and locked the back door. I still don't know what really happened that Christmas night. Whoever broke in didn't take much, if anything at all. Nothing I noticed anyway. I think they slipped inside just as I was getting home, and when they heard the garage, they ran through the kitchen, knocking over the mail, and hid. I know I saw them rush away from the tree. But if they were hiding the whole time I watched that movie, it doesn't explain the noises I kept hearing. Maybe there were no noises, or maybe it was something else entirely. The idea of them lying in the corner watching me for 2 whole hours is horribly disturbing. I wish I had more answers and could tell you more, but that's everything I know. Police didn't help much, and nothing has happened since. Hopefully it stays that way. Story 3 by Harrison C. I'm nearing 30, and Christmas nowadays isn't as exciting as it once was. I usually take a trip down to whichever family member was hosting the get-together that year and just hang out for the week, then go back home. It was always nice, but often there were just so many people that it was a bit chaotic for me. This was last year. I rented an Airbnb near my cousin's place, who was hosting the get-together. He lives kind of out in the middle of nowhere, so a lot of the options I had to rent were just small cabins. I chose one pretty much at random, and come a few days before Christmas, I drove out there. The first 2 days were actually really fun. I saw a lot of family I hadn't seen in years and enjoyed catching up. Then even more people showed up, like maybe 30 people stuffed in a 3-bedroom house. It was a mess. On Christmas Day, we spent the morning watching the kids open their presents, then had a big breakfast. I hung around until dinner time, then called in for the night at 7:00. I drove back to the cabin. The place was nestled away in the trees just outside of town. I thought the cabin was fairly nice, though when I pulled in and parked out front, I noticed shoe prints in the snow going up to the front door. I assumed it had to be the Airbnb host, maybe wanting to check in on me or something. When I got up to the door, it was clear they hadn't gone inside at all. They just stopped and maybe waited for me to answer for a while, then walked away. I went inside, tossed my jacket on the couch, and sat in the sofa chair. I considered texting the host to ask why he stopped by, but figured if it were important he would have reached out, so I forgot about it. After just a minute or two of sitting down, I dozed off. It must have only been 10 minutes later when I woke up to the doorbell ringing. I got up, walked over, rubbing the sleep out of my eyes, and opened the door. A man with medium black hair and a brown jacket stood there. He had a small smile and introduced himself as the Airbnb host, shaking my hand. I was still waking up, so I let him lead the conversation while I just nodded along. He asked how my stay was and said he needed to check on a few things again. I was too tired to think and let him walk past me before I realized I'd just agreed to let him inside without even questioning it. That woke me up fast. He stepped into the living room and just stood there looking around at the walls like he didn't actually know what he was looking for. And that's when it hit me. It was still Christmas Day, which made this all even stranger. Why would anyone need to check on the cabin today? Couldn't he have waited until tomorrow or come yesterday? His weird behavior only made it worse. He was walking slowly around, barely pretending to look for anything, and the thought that he wasn't actually the host began creeping into my head. I was thrown off by everything and didn't expect to deal with something like this on Christmas. Hey, do you think you could come by tomorrow instead? I've got a bunch of family that should be here any minute now. He stopped, turned around, and stared at me, his face stiff and almost angry. Then he casually walked to the front door like he was going to leave, but instead he closed it and locked it. That sent a cold wave of fear through me. I ran straight into the bedroom and locked the door behind me. He was there seconds later, twisting the handle and trying to push it open. I had no idea what to do. My car keys were on the couch in my jacket, along with my phone. I knew I had to act now. I looked to the back of the room and saw an old window with a latch you push open like a hatch. I hurried over, hearing the door behind me bend and crack as he hit it harder and harder. I squeezed myself out through the window and bolted toward the tree line. He must have heard me escape or broken down the door just after I fled, because when I got into the woods and looked back, I saw him run out the front door. I was covered by the dark, though, and he didn't seem to know where I went. He stayed outside for maybe 20 minutes before finally getting in his car and driving off. I waited a few more minutes just to be safe, then ran back inside, grabbed my phone, and called 911. During the investigation, the homeowner and real Airbnb host came down, confirming the man was not the person who should have been there with this situation. There wasn't much to go on, so it can only be assumed that the man figured out the cabin was an Airbnb and used that to get inside. His intention after that weren't known, but it likely wasn't to just steal a few cheap decorations. That night was a close call, and I don't think I'll ever be so trusting of anyone again. For story 4, it was a cold December night, a week before Christmas. My family always does Christmas in our Hamptons, New York summer house. The Hamptons are always quiet this time of year, since most of the rich homeowners are gone living in their other houses across the country. My dad and I got there first before the rest of my family because my mom and sisters still had work until the next weekend. My dad was retired and school was over for winter break for me, so we wanted to get to the Hamptons house early. We all have our own bedrooms in this house, which sits at the end of a quiet dead end road. My dad turned on the heat and water and all the usual things he has to do when we come back after months away. I brought my PS3 to play in my room and spent most of that first day just playing video games. On that first night, there was a huge snowstorm, another reason we wanted to arrive early so we didn't get stuck driving in terrible road conditions. The next morning, when I woke up and went into the kitchen, my dad asked me when I built a snowman. I looked at him confused and asked what he meant. He said the snowman in the backyard. I went to the window and saw 2 feet of fresh, untouched snow, but also a snowman sitting perfectly in our yard. It had 2 stick arms pointing upward and a face carved into the head. The eyes and smile were facing directly at the window. I told my dad I didn't build it. He shrugged and said it must have been the neighbor kids. He thought it was just an innocent joke, so I tried to believe that too. The next night is when everything changed. I was asleep in my room and woke up suddenly to a clear, loud thump on my window. I froze in fear. I hid under my blanket, trying not to be seen by whoever might be outside. After a few minutes, I tried convincing myself maybe snow fell from the roof and hit the glass. I slowly got up to peek outside. I screamed because for a second I thought a person was standing there, but it was another snowman. This one was right up close to the window, and instead of a smile, it had an angry frown carved into its face. I yelled for my dad, and he came rushing in. I pointed at the window, and this time he wasn't calm. He said he'd go next door in the morning and talk to the kids' parents. I slept in my sister's room for the rest of the night. The next morning, my dad went next door and rang the bell, but nobody answered. There were no cars in the driveway, meaning they weren't even in town. That was the only house nearby with kids, so that didn't help explain anything. 5 or 6 days passed with nothing strange happening until Christmas Eve night. The rest of our family, plus all 4 grandparents, were now at the house. We were sitting in the living room before dinner. Even though it was already dark outside, suddenly someone knocked on the front door, not ringing the doorbell, just knocking. We weren't expecting anyone else, and my stomach dropped. My dad went to the door and asked, "Who is it?" Someone on the other side said, "Please let me in, I need help." The door had no peephole or windows, and there were no side windows to see who was out there. My dad asked what was wrong, and the person said, "I have no one to spend Christmas with, please help me." We all stared at each other. My dad yelled back, telling them to leave before he called the police. The person said, "Okay, I'll leave, please don't call the police." Then everything went silent. He never opened the door. We all instantly connected this to the snowman. We knew it had to be the same person, and we were right. On Christmas morning, there was a note taped to the front door. It said something like, "I just wanted to have a little fun. I built the snowman for the boy in the house. I don't have anyone to spend the holiday with." It was messy writing, almost shaky. I think whoever left that note and built those snowmen was mentally unstable. It didn't feel like a joke because he actually came to our door asking to be let in. I think he was dangerous, and even if he didn't mean harm, the things he did were more than enough to make him someone none of us ever wanted to meet again. Story 5. It was Christmas of 2016. My name is Andre, and at the time I was 21 years old. Our whole family was gathered at our Uncle Joshua's place for the holidays. Well, it was Christmas Eve, and my immediate family, plus my cousins and other close relatives, decided we should all go to my uncle and aunt's apartment in downtown Miami for the night. We're from Connecticut, so warm December weather felt completely strange to us. It was Friday, the night before Christmas Eve, and my brother Nico and I, being young single guys in Miami, wanted to go out somewhere. We kept hearing about a bunch of Christmas-themed parties happening at clubs and bars. Nico was only 18, but he had a fake ID, so we figured he'd make it past the door. We went to this club on Miami Beach advertising a Christmas event. Almost everyone in line was wearing Santa hats and glowing bracelets, so the vibe felt festive enough. But all of it became pointless because the bouncer not only tried charging us $100 each to get in, but he also spotted that Nico's ID was fake. So we tried a bar not too far away and luckily got inside. Some people were wearing Santa hats here too, which made sense for the weekend before Christmas. While we were at the bar, this older woman suddenly walked up to Nico and started talking to him. I could hear most of their conversation. She looked mid-40s and kept telling my brother how she had a thing for younger guys with Hispanic accents. To be honest, it sounded creepy and strange, but Nico was blinded by the fact a woman was giving him attention. I just let him do his thing. The woman wore a blue Santa hat and a tight, revealing Christmas sweater. The two of them talked for so long that I ended up chatting with the guys sitting next to me at the bar. Suddenly, Nico tapped my shoulder and told me he was leaving with the woman. I told him all right and that I was happy for him, I guess. I didn't stay much longer after that and called an Uber back to my uncle's place, assuming Nico would spend the night with her. Halfway through my ride, my phone rang. Nico was calling me. When I picked up, there was only static, like he pocket-dialed me. But then I heard a man's voice in the background that definitely wasn't my brother. Suddenly, another man started yelling too. I called Nico's name over and over trying to get any answer, but the call disconnected. Obviously, I was panicking. I thought he was with that woman, not random men. I tried calling him 10 more times before finally someone picked up, but it wasn't Nico. It was an older man with a deep voice saying he found the phone on the sidewalk. I asked if he could drop it at my uncle's place or meet me somewhere, but he didn't respond. I just heard people talking in the background, and then I heard screaming. It was Nico's voice yelling my name, yelling for help, and then the call cut off again. I told the Uber driver to pull over because I was freaking out trying to call my family. It was late, no one answered. The driver told me to call the police immediately. That's exactly what I did. The police came to my uncle's place and I woke everyone up, telling them Nico was in danger. I had to describe what the woman looked like and what time he left the bar. Then my dad and I went with the police to the bar itself. While we were there, I got a phone call from a random number. It was Nico. He was out of breath and gasping, saying he was kidnapped and barely escaped. He was using a stranger's phone, We all rushed to the location he gave us, some sketchy street in North Miami. When we found him, his face was a bloody mess, two black eyes and bruises everywhere. All his stuff had been stolen. He told us everything. He left with the woman who said she ordered an Uber or Lyft. When the ride arrived, in some quiet back alley, Nico got in and realized instantly it wasn't a real Uber. It was a setup. There were two men in the car. They held him down and threatened to shoot him if he made any noise. They drove for a while, and during that time, one of the men used Nico's phone to call me. When he yelled anything, they beat him. That explained the blood and bruises. They broke his phone, took his wallet, his keys, everything. When the car stopped and no one was holding him down, he bolted out of the car. They didn't chase him. The car just sped away into the dark. He said he was sure they were going to kill him and dump his body if he didn't run. Police were never able to identify the woman on the security footage from the bar. Nico said none of the men wore masks, which made him even more convinced they planned to kill him. The whole holiday weekend was ruined, but we were just grateful he was alive. On Christmas night, all of us were jolted out of sleep by Nico screaming in the middle of the night. He was yelling, "She's in the house." I woke him from whatever nightmare he was having. I have to say, though, him screaming "she's in the house" made me think back to her creepy smile and made me sleep with one eye open that night. Story 6. I bought a small house with my brother George a couple years back. We hosted Christmas the first year we lived there just so the family could see the place, and so we could all be together for the first time in forever. We don't have a huge family, so it was the two of us. Our parents, our aunt and uncle, our cousin, and our sister with her two nephews. Our sister arrived first with her husband and the kids to help us cook and set things up. They brought their dog Mika with them too. Since they lived 2 hours away, they planned to spend the night at our house. The rest of the family lived less than an hour away, so they wouldn't be staying. Not that the house had much extra room for more people anyway. During Christmas dinner, we talked for a bit about some murders that recently happened in the area. Bodies had been found in the woods in our county. It wasn't a topic we kept going on because our mom and my sister didn't want to scare the kids or ruin the holiday. After dinner, we had some wine in the living room with a Christmas movie playing softly in the background as we all talked. After a few hours, family members started leaving one by one until only my brother and I, and my sister, her husband, and the kids were left. The kids went to bed before us, and the four of us stayed up later having more wine. My girlfriend ended up coming over after 10 to spend the night since her family had already gone home. Eventually, Christmas night came to an end and it was time to sleep. I woke up to my girlfriend shaking me. The room was still dark. I groggily looked at the clock next to my bed and saw it was around 2 a.m. I asked her what was wrong and she whispered for me to listen. I heard Mika out in the hall growling. I got out of bed and stepped into the hall to see what she was growling at. Then I noticed the back door of our house was wide open and a cold breeze blew straight into my face. Mika was staring outside through the open doorway. I checked to see if anyone was out there, and as I stood at the back door, I heard my brother's voice call my name from somewhere in the darkness outside. He sounded far away, deep in the woods. I thought something had happened to him or he needed help. I ran back to my room to tell my girlfriend while putting on my shoes and coat. Then I stepped outside with a flashlight. There was a dusting of snow on the ground, just enough to see footprints leading from the back door down the deck toward the woods. I yelled George's name loudly and heard his voice calling my name again. It was clear he was somewhere in the woods now, but as I followed the tracks into the trees, the footprints slowly faded and became harder to see until they disappeared completely. I yelled out, "Where are you? What's wrong?" Again, I heard George's voice call only my name. Every time he shouted, his voice sounded the same distance away, like he wasn't getting closer or farther, just stuck in the same spot. I didn't want to go too deep into the woods because I didn't want to get lost. I tried calling George's phone, but he didn't pick up. I walked a little farther, but suddenly the shouting stopped completely. No matter how much I yelled, there was only silence, not even the sound of bugs in the freezing air. Just the cold breeze and my own breathing. Suddenly my phone rang. I hoped it was George, but it was my girlfriend. I answered, and she said Chet George is in his bedroom right now. What I said, that made no sense. I had been hearing his voice for minutes, calling me by name from the woods. I asked her to check if my sister's husband was still on the pull-out couch. After half a minute, she said yes, he was. Instantly, I felt like something else was in the woods with me. Like anything could jump out from any direction. I turned around and ran as fast as I could back the way I came. I didn't stop until I could see the backyard light glowing faintly through the trees. I made it back to the house and everyone was awake. George and everyone else looked horrified when I explained that Mika was growling at the wide open back door and that there were footprints leading into the woods. But the scariest thing was that I thought the voice out there was George's. And whoever or whatever it was knew my name. We talked for half an hour about calling the police, and eventually we did. An officer came and asked questions like if anything was stolen or if we knew anyone who might want to hurt us. After about half an hour, he left, telling us to call back if anything else happened. I don't know if this had anything to do with the murders happening in our county at the time, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Nothing else ever happened after that night, but none of us can logically explain what happened. I'm still scared to go in or near the woods after dark. Christmas 2017 was supposed to mark a fresh start in our lives. My husband and I had recently moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood. The house wasn't perfect, but it was ours. The cozy porch, roomy spaces, and the soft creak of wooden floors made it feel like a new beginning, a place where we could build our dreams. After unpacking and arranging my furniture, I finally poured myself a warm cup of tea to relax my tired muscles. The cold air outside made the tea feel even more comforting. Holding my mug, I decided to step out onto the balcony above. The view took my breath away. Snow covered the rooftops like frosting on a gingerbread house, and Christmas lights twinkled brightly, their reflections shimmering on icy patches of the ground. Far away, soft carols drifted in the air, soothing and distant. After weeks of settling in, I finally felt calm, but my attention kept drifting to the neighbor's house. A man and a woman were on their balcony, their voices cutting through the still night. The man waved his arms, his face red with anger, while the woman yelled back, fists clenched tightly. Though I couldn't make out their words, their intensity was clear. I paused, unsure of what to do, reminding myself it wasn't my business. Still, the memory of their anger lingered as I went back inside. The next morning, our house felt warm and inviting, cinnamons, scented candles filling the air. I wanted to create a welcoming holiday, so I planned a Christmas Eve dinner, hoping to connect with neighbors and bring some cheer. In my mind, I made a list: cooking, decorating, and of course, finding a Christmas tree. Our living room felt empty without one, and I couldn't imagine celebrating without its sparkling lights. Later that day, I set out to find the perfect tree. Snow crunched under my feet as I walked through the neighborhood, enjoying wreaths and decorations. Passing the neighbor's house, I heard shouting again. This time it was quieter, but sharper, almost slicing through the air. The woman's voice was quick and piercing, the man's voice more intense, angry. I slowed my pace, unable to stop listening, though I couldn't understand their words. A chill ran down my spine, and I hurried home. Inside, our tree stood tall, decorated and glowing in the string lights. The house felt joyful, like Christmas had truly arrived. I decided to invite the couple next door over, wrapping myself warmly and heading to their house. The doorbell didn't work, so I knocked. After some time, the man opened the door. His messy hair and dark circles under his eyes caught my attention. There was something unsettling in the way he stood, like he expected a fight. "I'm having a Christmas Eve dinner," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "You and your wife are invited." "My wife isn't here," he said simply. "I'll come alone." His tone made a knot form in my stomach. As he shifted, I noticed the floor behind him. Dark, shiny liquid spread across the wood. I froze, my breath catching. He looked at me, expression serious, then closed the door with a bang, locking it. Christmas Eve arrived with excitement. The table was set beautifully, candles glowed softly, and the smell of roasted turkey filled the house. Many neighbors came, sharing smiles and stories. The next door couple didn't show up. I tried to ignore the uneasy feeling creeping in, reminding myself not everyone is outgoing. Still, the memory of the dark liquid on his floor lingered. As the night ended and guests left, I decided to check on them one last time. Their house was dark, windows empty and lifeless. I tapped, then knocked harder, shouted, but no answer came. The quiet was heavy. The next morning, I woke early, the cold air biting at my skin. Wrapped in a blanket, I brewed tea and went to the balcony, my favorite peaceful spot. I looked at the neighbor's house. The lower level was dim as before, but one room above glimmered softly. The light flickered like the bulb might die. Then I saw it. A shadow moved behind the curtains. A figure stood perfectly still for a moment before disappearing into darkness. My heart raced. Could it be him? Was his spouse back? I hurried inside and locked the door. That evening, I tried reading by the fireplace. The cozy glow barely eased my tension. The house felt heavy and quiet. At 1:13 a.m., a loud noise shattered the silence. I froze, the book slipping from my hands. It happened again, closer, pressing. My legs felt heavy as I approached the door. Through the peephole, I saw him, the neighbor, standing on my porch, breath visible in the cold air, holding a gun. The barrel caught the light softly. My hands shook as I dialed 911, whispering my situation. He stood silently, staring. When police arrived, they quickly surrounded him. He went quietly as they removed the gun and handcuffed him. Before leaving, he shouted, "You killed my wife, and I'll kill you next." Police also arrested me for questioning, but eventually I was cleared. They entered the neighbor's house with flashlights. Later, one came out pale, informing me his wife was upstairs, suspended from the ceiling, blood on her head. The pool of blood on the floor matched what I had seen days before. The man never returned. The police shared few details. For weeks, I imagined her body swaying softly in that dimly lit room. The house stayed dark and quiet, but sometimes at night I could hear soft shouts drifting in the air. Sometimes, looking at the upstairs window, I thought I saw a faint figure staring at me. Story 8. Before we get into the next story, if this is your first time here, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for upcoming scary stories. We need your support. Please share these stories with your friends and family. Thanks. I was 12 years old when it happened, and even though many years have passed, I still remember every detail as if it were yesterday. It was December, just a couple of weeks before Christmas. The air was cold, and snow covered the ground, softening sounds and making everything feel quiet and strange. I was walking home from school, making little puffs of snow fly up with my boots. It was my favorite part of the day, that moment when I could walk freely and think about anything I wanted that day. However, something felt off. When I reached my street, I saw a man standing at the corner. He didn't move at all, just stood there staring at me. His coat was long and dark, and he wore a hat pulled low over his face. I slowed my steps, unsure what to do next. He didn't wave or smile. He just watched. I rushed the rest of the way home, feeling his eyes on me, making the hairs on my neck stand up. I kept him a secret from everyone. Maybe it was nothing. I thought it might just be some small thing. Adults always stand around, right? The next day, while walking home again, he was there once more, this time moving around. He started walking behind me, close enough to feel his presence, but not too close. I could sense him. "Hey there, kid," he called, his voice low and scratchy. I moved my head slightly but kept walking. "Looking forward to Christmas?" he asked. "I guess," I said quietly, walking faster. "Do you know where to find the best Christmas trees?" he asked, sounding almost happy. I shook my head and didn't answer. I didn't like how he said it, like he knew something I didn't. "In the forest past the old path," he said. "That's where the really good ones are. You really should check it out yourself." When I got home, my heart raced. I couldn't understand why he was telling me this. It felt secretive, like something I wasn't meant to know. Days went by, and I tried to forget about him, but every walk home left me feeling watched. I never saw him again, but the feeling stayed. One afternoon, I was in the living room watching TV, the screen lighting up the dark room. The phone rang and I jumped a bit before picking it up. It was my friend Mike. "Hey," he said, excited, "let's go find a Christmas tree. The good ones are in the forest." His words hit me hard. How did he know about the woods? I hadn't told him about the man. I started to speak, but he interrupted. "Come on, it'll be fun." I talked to my mom, but she said no. "Your dad will bring home a tree. You're just a kid. No need to go searching." I sat by the window watching the snow, waiting for her to leave. She went to pick up my little sister and told me to stay inside. I felt a mix of guilt and excitement. Once she left, I put on my coat and called Mike. We ran through the snow, laughing and sliding on icy patches. I told him about the man watching me and what he said about the forest trees. Mike shrugged. "We'll just look around," he said, then added he had to stop at his friend's house at the edge of the woods. The house was old and creaky, messy and unkempt. Mike's friend was 18, looked a little tough, messy hair and frowning constantly. They talked quietly, and I started to hear words like kidnapping and quick cash. My stomach twisted. Were they joking? Or worse, were they serious? I told Mike it was getting late. My mom would be home soon. "I have to leave," I said, trying to sound calm. He chuckled and waved goodbye. I took a small path through the trees to get home faster. It was narrow and full of tall trees, snow covering everything, quiet except for my boots crunching in the snow. In the middle of the forest, my shoe came loose. I knelt down to fix it, struggling with the wet laces. Then I heard a soft crunch. Behind me, I froze, my fingers still on the laces. I looked up. He was there, the man from the corner, now in dark clothes, face hidden by a mask. My chest tightened as he stepped closer. I didn't think. I just ran, boots slipping in the snow. I could hear his steps behind me, louder and faster than my own. The trees blurred past, my breath coming out in quick clouds. "Stop," he yelled, voice bouncing through the woods. "Come back, or something bad will happen to you and your family." Tears filled my eyes, but I kept running. My legs hurt, chest tight. Woods growing darker. I saw a big fallen tree covered in snow and hid behind it. Pressing against the cold trunk, my heart pounded, hoping he couldn't hear it. His footsteps slowed near me. "Come out," he shouted. "I'm serious." I closed my eyes tightly, hoping to disappear. After a long pause, his steps faded. I stayed still, counting to 100 before moving slowly, carefully finding my way through the shadows. Snow fell harder, making it harder to see. Then I saw a shape in front of me, a shadowy figure. My fear rose. Was it him again? I ran, but the person called my name. "Hold on, it's me." It was Mr. Harris, my neighbor, a security guard who often walked the area to keep it safe. Relief washed over me. I ran to him crying. He listened while I explained everything. Expression serious. "Let's go," he said. "I'll take you home." When I got home, my mom was there, upset. But seeing my face, her anger turned to concern. I told her everything. She contacted the police, who searched the woods, but found nothing. The man had gone, leaving only footprints in the snow. Christmas Eve was always big in our family. Dinner at my grandparents' in San Diego. Not fancy, but cozy, carpet worn, living room smelling of cinnamon that felt like home that year. The house glowed with colorful lights, the tree piled high with gifts, roasted turkey and baked ham filling the air. The night began like any other. Relatives arrived slowly, some with dishes, others just themselves. Uncle Rick with his green bean casserole, Aunt Susan with pie that seemed store-bought, Cousin Jenna snapping pictures constantly, kids running, laughter mixing with Christmas music. The table looked full, plates stacked, glasses of wine and soda, candles flickering. It was messy, loud, and warm. Then there was him. I didn't know who invited him. He looked out of place, sitting quietly at the end of the table, tall, pale, thinning hair slicked back, clothes neat but old fashioned. He barely ate, just moved food around, sipped from his glass. Everyone acted like he'd always been there. Dessert came and things felt wrong. Jenna wanted a group photo. We all gathered, laughing, shuffling into frame. The man hesitated but joined. When the camera flashed, he flinched as if burned. He stood apart, expression unreadable. The photo was strange. Jenna showed me, everyone else smiling. He looked blurred, like he moved, but he hadn't. Maybe a glitch. I said, voice shaky, back to dessert. Kids tired, adults relaxed from wine. He stayed quiet, eyes darting as if searching for something, his presence heavy. Just finishing dessert, he suddenly stood, chair screeching, face pale, sweaty, screamed a raw guttural scream, freezing everyone. He ran out the door, stunned. No one moved. Then Uncle Rick went after him. Others followed, coats and flashlights. I stayed with kids clinging to parents. Muffled voices calling his name drifted outside. Search party returned empty-handed. Tracks ended in the woods. No sign of him, no footprints away. Police came, searched, but found nothing. No one agreed on his appearance, brown or black hair, eyes green or gray. It was like he was different. Everyone, rest of night tense, laughter gone, replaced with uneasy silence. Leaving home felt like something watched from the woods. Christmas morning hollow, opened presents pretending normal, but man's absence hung like a shadow. Police called, no leads, case closed. Another missing person. Weeks passed, life went on, but I couldn't stop thinking about that night, avoiding family gatherings. Grandparents' house didn't feel like home. Months later, Jenna messaged me. She found another photo, earlier group picture. In the corner near doorway was the man, eyes fixed on me, twisted smile, sending cold dread. I deleted the message, blocked her, didn't want to know anymore.